Driving through Bowie, Maryland to visit a friend, I was struck by the amount of horse names, racetrack symbols, horse paraphernalia, horse heads, everywhere. I couldn't figure out why. So I went to my local historian, the local museum, and they turned me on to Belair Mansion, which then turned me on to Belair Stud. It was the Belair Stud farm that really caught my eye. I grew up in the horse racing industry. My family still does it in Kentucky. I'd always heard stories about these great horses, Gallant Fox, Sir Galahad, William Woodward, the owner, Sonny Fitzsimmons, the trainer. Little did I know that I was located on the very grounds that these legends were born. So I ventured over and I did a tour of Belair Stud, and I recommend that you do too. Samuel Ogle arrived in Maryland in 1747. He was the first provincial governor of Maryland. His family held significant land in Collington, which is present-day Bowie. Samuel Ogle served as the governor from 1798 to 1801. In addition to being an aristocrat and governor, he also was recognized as the first person to import warm bloods, or thoroughbred racehorses, to the colonies. After his death, his family would inherit the estate, but over time, the estate was broken up until it was purchased by James T. Woodward. He would have no children and be a prominent banker. His nephew would be his ward, William Woodward. William Woodward Sr. would inherit the estate upon the passing of his uncle. A graduate of Harvard Law School, he was admitted to the bar in 1901. However, instead, he decided to pursue a career in banking. Before doing so, he became the secretary to Joseph Choate, the United States ambassador to England, where William would be introduced into his lifelong passion, the passion for horse racing. With the new farm inherited, he expanded the acreage to 2,280 acres. William Woodford hired Sonny Jim Fitzsimmons as his trainer, and together from the 1920s to the 50s, they established one of the most renowned racing stables in the United States. Beyond simply pursuing victories, Mr. Woodward was an ardent admirer of the horse. His ambition extended beyond dominating the racing scene. He also aimed to ensure the protection and well-being of the horses themselves. With the legacy already established by his uncle, Mr. Woodward would also inherit a character named Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson was a free black man born to slaves in Kentucky. So touched and moved by Jackson's dedication to Mr. Woodward and the farm, Mr. Woodward would have a book published privately, a memoir of Andrew Jackson Africanus. Jackson had been originally hired by his uncle, James T. Woodward. In 1900, James T. Woodward hired Jackson to work at Belair Farm. Mr. Jackson was an accomplished jockey and gallop boy. William Woodward gave credit to him for spotting Captain Hancock, a $60 stud horse that Woodward purchased from a barn in Collington. Collington would be renamed to Bowie after a prominent governor. The interaction between Jackson and Mr. William Woodford was unlike most boss-to-employee situations. Andrew was born free but to slave parents. He did not know his birth date and received very little formal education. He served as the trainer of record when Belair achieved its first victory at the race at Marlborough Racecourse in 1909. The winning colt El Dior was sired by Captain Hancock out of Chermna. One of the mares valued at $100. Jackson remained until his passing in 1932. He was interred at White Marsh Cemetery, Sacred Heart Church, where he was laid to rest under a tombstone donated by Mr. Woodward. Mr. Jackson was Catholic. Belair Stud would produce Gallant Fox, the son of French-bred stallion Sir Galahad III. He was foaled at Bull Hancock's Claiborne Farm near Paris, Kentucky, and was a large bay stallion with a white blaze. Gallant Fox would win the Triple Crown in 1930. This was the largest accomplishment in horse racing for Belair Stud. At the end of his career, with 11 wins, 3 seconds, and 2/3 from 17 starts, his lifetime earnings were $328,165. To account for inflation, today that would be worth approximately $6 million. Of his progeny, Gallant Fox would be the sire of Omaha, who would also win the Triple Crown, and it would be the first and last father-son duo to accomplish that feat. In 1936, Horse of the Year, Granville, and 18 other stakes winners. Gallant Fox died on November the 13th, 1954. He was buried not too far from his father. Time took its toll. Mr. Woodward was a man deeply cherished by his employees. He treated those around him with kindness and departed from the horse racing industry with the dignity of a true gentleman. After struggling with a serious illness, Mr. Woodward would pass away in his New York City home on September the 26th, 1953. He was 77 years old. The estate would be passed on to his son, William Woodward, Jr. He maintained the farm and the breeding stock and the racehorses. Tragedy would then strike as his socialite wife would claim to have mistaken him for an intruder and one night shot him in their Long Island home. She herself would spiral out of control as she was cast out of social society and commit suicide at the young age of 50. The two heir apparent, her sons, who inherited the farm and the estate, committed suicide, while the youngest, who had served in Vietnam, would deal with drug and alcohol issues the rest of his life. With the decline of the family, so then came the decline of the estate. The horses were sold. The mansion and the grounds, all 2,000 acres, were bought by Levitt and Sons, a developing company. And the once beautiful, sprawling acreage, the cradle of American horse racing, was turned into subdivisions. In 1964, however, Levitt would sell the mansion and 5.5 acres back to the city of Bowie for the price of $1 to be used as City Hall, as well as what is now Fox Hill Park. Bowie City Hall relocated out of the mansion in 1978. 40 years after its construction, the Belair development was listed on the Maryland Inventory of Historic Sites. The barn itself is located about a block away. It's easy to be missed. Levitt used it to store machinery, shovels, dirt, gravel. Once it was cleaned out in the 70s, a restoration project began. Fully restored, now you can stand in the same paddock that Gallant Fox would have walked, where Andrew Jackson would have put tack on horses and checked for lameness. You can see where Omaha stayed. You can walk the hallways, the shed rows, see the antiques. You can live and be a part of the history that surrounds you. Next time that you're in Bowie, Maryland, take a moment. Go see Belair Estate, Belair Mansion, but also take a moment to walk the block to Belair Stud Farm. Breathe in some of the hay. Let your feet walk through some of the straw. If you're lucky, maybe you'll take some of the same dirt home that Gallant Fox stood on. So go see the barn fully restored and see the placard that states for everyone to know that this is Belair Stud, the cradle of American horse racing. Thank you all for watching. God bless.